the boys move on forward. Now we have another elimination series, The Move versus For Fun. And The Move was one of the most dominant teams of last year. And it's kind of similar when we look at Never Lucky versus the boys, right? It was the team that has traditionally made upsets in Colo's squad, and then the boys who are a dominant team this year. The Move, a little bit less dominant, but they were a powerhouse team last year. And one of the teams that we knew had the potential to upset them even in last season was For Fun. And now we're going to get to jump into the series. Zico, what do you expect these guys to be playing?
I expect the Move to be running with the classic Rogue Shadow Priest Resto Shaman, at least in game number 1. I hope they have something more in store for us if that doesn't work out as a plan B. And For Fun, the Firemen, never mind. They are going to be playing Demon Hunter DK Resto Druid. So For Fun actually added Cheerios here into their roster, and this is his debut.
Yep, Cheerios, a very excellent Demon Hunter in the North American scene. An interesting composition from the Move once again. This is their main. This is what we normally see from them. The Assassination Rogue, Shadow Priest, Resto Shaman hasn't necessarily been the best. I think Absurge could potentially struggle on mana in this matchup, especially with Cheerios consistently stunning him, using that mana rift. Watch out for a purple circle under Absurge that's just going to be burning some of his mana as well as his health. And if Cheerios can consistently land that, I think that will give For Fun the edge in this matchup.
Absurge has been facing mana rift all the way back against Method Orange when Trill and Mez were running double mana rift. So Absurge has healed with 0 mana for years at this point, and he's definitely experienced at it. While it is an advantage for Fun, I'm not sure if it's going to be enough on its own. They are going to need to set up good cross-crowd control to execute a kill. We currently see Peekaboo taking control of Whoopi, trying to sap a trinket, but not finding that opportunity. Whoopi just sitting through the crowd control comfortably, allowing Rosita Jones to trade his personal defensive cooldowns instead. No panic attack on the side of For Fun. They respond to that blind completely appropriately.
Yeah, and this is a strategy we've seen from the Move in the past. Peekaboo runs over, he gets the blind on Whoopi, and then kind of just sits there and babysits him a little bit. And normally the Shadow Priest can rot down the other 2 DPS, and that gives the Move a little bit of pressure. But against classes like the Demon Hunter, like the Death Knight, they have so much self-healing that the Shadow Priest rot pressure isn't going to be that significant. Right now, the Move making a nice swap over onto Whoopi. We saw him pick up the Resto Druid, I believe it was last week. A lot of these healers have opted to pick up that Resto Druid as it is so strong, but I think for the Move, it's going to be interesting to see if they continually test Whoopi to make sure he's up for the challenge.
Yeah, it's really up to Peekaboo. He's the only one that can create pressure for the team. Shadow Priest is basically countered by the composition that For Fun has selected with all of their powerful self-healing mechanics and Leech and Death Strike with the heal over time effects and Restoration Druid. Perfect time Shackle there on the Raise Abomination by Wizka. Unfortunately breaking a little bit early. I believe his Void Form activation broke it, but getting control of that Abomination as it's currently shackled in that cage, preventing its damage is very important. That's a powerful cooldown that Unholy Death Knights bring to the fight, and obviously as a Shadow Priest, you don't move very fast, so trying to run away from it is not going to work. Instead, using Shackle is your best option. Peekaboo has consistently been going after Whoopi in these swaps, trying to create some opportunity for his team, but slowly and surely, Cheerios is creating that mana advantage through Mana Rift, and it's almost an inevitability at this point for Absurge to fundamentally just run out of mana. Rosita Jones bursting down WizK, trying to create some pressure for the team. WizK using that Shackle very effectively during burst moments to control the Unholy Death Knight's army of the dead as much as possible to avoid as much damage as he can. But it's just so difficult. They do finally catch Whoopi out of bear form in a kidney shot. Good move on their part, but don't have enough damage to take him down.
Yeah, Rosita Jones with good backup, uses the Death Grip to move Peekaboo out of position, chains Vice, and it's really difficult for Peekaboo to actually reconnect to his target. Now full blind on Whoopi. Whoopi can't trinket out of this because he has no Bark Skin, and that would make him very vulnerable to another setup, so he's going to be opting to sit that. Peekaboo punishes with the Vanish, with the follow-up Sap. Now Rosita Jones could be taking a little bit of pressure, but he still has his Icebound Fortitude as well as his Anti-Magic Zone. I think Rosita Jones should be sitting pretty during that setup, and Whoopi was able to comfortably sit through the blind Sap. Now Barkskin's rotating back up. He still has his Trinket. And I think for the Move, the main pressure point is once again going to be Whoopi, but he seems to be dealing with these situations quite well.
Yeah, before dampening, it is going to be difficult for either side to really make a significant dent into the opposing team. The advantage, though, for Cheerios is that Mana Rift can at least gain them a mana lead, although they just let Absterge drink and reset his mana pool, so they've lost that advantage. Whoopi is now realizing that and trying to find one himself to even out that playing field as we move closer to dampening. Not able to even out completely. Another well-timed shackle on that Abomination. Good defense on WizKay's part, even though it's very difficult to generate pressure against these classes in the current meta. He's definitely doing his best to slow down the damage for Absterge to recover, while Peekaboo does his best to work around the defense and try and create openings for the team. It's going to really rely on Peekaboo to carry the move in game number 1 against For Fun. I don't know how many times we've seen them face these compositions that are just so durable. It looks so hopeless the entire time. We get into 50% dampening. They have no mana, no health left on all 3 members, and it's Peekaboo that navigates through that and finds a kill. Definitely look to see if he can do it here in game 1.
Yeah, the move's trying to overcome all odds in this matchup. Rosita Jones getting a little bit low. Full kidney shot now on Whoopi. The move once again finding some pressure. WizKay throws in his Gladiator's Maledict to help Peekaboo out in this setup, as well as a nice silence. Whoopi gets behind the pillar. Second Maledict does get traded out by Peekaboo. Whoopi dispels it and ultimately is fine, but he actually had to trade out a decent amount of mana, Barskin and Ironbark during that setup. WizKay now under fire. Absterge having to play catch up, throwing out some healing waves as we moved into dampening. Things are going to get more difficult for both of these healers. I think Absterge's mana is going to start getting taxed quite a bit. And even pressure for the move could start building up now that Rosita Jones and Cheerios self-healing is going to be a little bit more limited. I think Whoopi's going to have a much more difficult job.
They got through Whoopi's Gladiator's Medallion. This could be an opportunity for the move. Peekaboo creates an opening to build some momentum, but WizKay is getting pushed back. He tried to overextend and chase down Whoopi, and he's really feeling the pain of that overextension. Raise Abomination casted and shackled instantly. Good reaction time on WizKay's part. That cooldown is effectively negated as a result of his good play. Cheerios hexed. Whoopi unable to dispel. Good crowd control here by the move as they tried to take down Whoopi, but Death Grip from Rosita peels Peekaboo away, allowing Whoopi a lot of time to breathe. WizKay now switching targets to Rosita, trying to catch him off guard, and this is what the move are known for. They will mix up their strategies, mid-game adaptations, and create openings with unexpected pressure and unexpected targets, which is what allows them to continue to make it to these top 8s, even though their compositions are not the best.
Yeah, full kidney shot now on Whoopi. Good damage here from Peekaboo, commits the Vendetta as well. Whoopi has to respond with the Barskin. He needs to stay out of line of sight of WizKay. Peekaboo gets caught into the bash. WizKay able to fully load him up with damage over time effects, the Vampiric Embrace, or sorry, the VT as well. Vampiric Touch and the Shadow Word Pain are going to be rotting down all 3 members right now, as WizKay has been able to free cast in Void form, putting out decent amounts of pressure, but still, For Fun has been able to handle it quite easily. Whoopi now in a kidney shot. This looks like a dangerous situation for him, but Cheerios still has the darkness, and I think it's likely it gets dropped out. Now that they've worked through that, Whoopi could be in a lot of trouble very shortly.
Yeah, Whoopi cannot afford to be caught out of bear form as frequently as he is in this matchup. I do think that this is a fairly one-sided fight for their composition, but little errors are starting to pile up, and the mistakes that have been made will eventually cost them the game if it continues to happen. Peekaboo capitalizing on every single mistake immediately. Whoopi, well-timed bear form, avoids a lot of damage in this kidney shot, but this is what Peekaboo does. If Whoopi's in bear form, he makes an adaptation, switches targets, builds pressure on Rosita. Then Whoopi has to leave bear form to heal Rosita. Peekaboo then can switch back to him and get more pressure onto 2 targets, and it's definitely top-tier play on his part. Good crowd control by the move here as they drop a smoke bomb and look for a kill on Rosita Jones. Not enough damage to take him out here at 17%, dampening that Death Strike still quite potent. Peekaboo does continue the chain of crowd control, however, and looks for more momentum. Lightning bolts from Absterge. That's another thing I really enjoy about the move, is that Absterge is not hesitant when he needs to add just a tad bit of lightning to the fight. He can push the other team over the edge as a result with that high level of awareness on that healer roll to do damage when he can.
Yeah, and this pressure from the move has really taxed Whoopi's mana. Kidney shot now on Rosita Jones. He doesn't have a single defensive cooldown left. Whoopi might have to use the Ironbark, gets silenced up. Gets reverse magic by Cheerios. Good timing, quick reaction by Cheerios to help out his teammate. Now Peekaboo, with only evasion left, is increasingly vulnerable of a target. Absterge actually managed to sneak away and completely reset his mana. But Peekaboo might get punished if they can just take him down right here, right now. Feint's going to be traded out. Void Shift as well from WizKay was used. Now both members from the move are low. Absterge has to play catch up. He has the Ascendance. Want to activate that, and if he can free cast some heals here, I think the move is going to be in a very healthy spot.
So WizK used Void Shift when he was also low health, so Peekaboo didn't gain any benefit of that Void Shift. Effectively, the cooldown was wasted, and they're not going to see another one for the rest of the fight. That mistake might cost the move the match. Will they be able to stay alive? They've got an opening here. They've got Vendetta. Whoopi has no trinket if they can catch him out of bear form, but it looks like they're reluctant to make that swap just yet. A little bit hesitant, chasing down Rosita, now pressuring Cheerios, and dampening that self-healing of the Death Knight gets weaker, so that he may be a vulnerability. Peekaboo looks to exploit, moves in behind the pillar. Absterge moves in as well, crushing him with the Maledict, trying to add in just a little bit of extra damage and healing absorption. They've managed to tap Whoopi on mana if the move can stabilize, but they've made mistakes in terms of defensive cooldown management. Preemptive feint by Peekaboo reduces a lot of damage during that bash. Just enough for him to comfortably sit through it. Good mind controls on Rosita while Absterge is crowd controlled. WizK's defense has been solid. Now he just needs a good initiation and a good push of Peekaboo's Vendetta to finally put the team of For Fun down. They've got a kidney shot on Rosita. They go for the Vendetta. They're looking for the kill here, and now they silence the deny anti-magic shield. Perfect timing by WizK. Nice mid-game adaptation once again, using that crowd control to deny the defense of the Death Knight rather than crowd controlling the healer. Now they managed to pull Whoopi's Gliders Medallion. They managed to pull Darkness, anti-magic zone, every single cooldown from For Fun blown in one attack. The move are on point.
Yeah, they are on fire in this matchup. Now the For Fun doesn't really have much left. Vampiric Embrace gets activated by WizK. They're looking to stay offensive in this matchup. Rosita Jones still low. Whoopi almost completely tapped on mana in this situation. Absterge looking to play a little bit more offensive. There is a full silence on a Whoopi. Rosita Jones desperately trying to keep himself alive. That was a Vendetta from Peekaboo, which pulled out so many of those defensive cooldowns. Whoopi still just trying to dispel the Vampiric Touch as well as the Shadow of Pain as often as possible. Now with the full bash on Peekaboo, he's a little bit vulnerable, but still has many defensives he can rotate through. Kidney shot now on Whoopi. The move all over the place. Dancing circles on For Fun.
Yep, the move doing their best here, even though at a disadvantage in this current meta. They are asserting dominance in game number one. Peekaboo is the only vulnerability at the moment, but he has cooldowns to trade. I'm surprised to not just see him do it. He's going to evasion, deny the Death Strike, and take the kill. Peekaboo is ready to perform here in game one.
Cheerios and the squad gonna go down as the move eat the breakfast of champions. Zico, how were they able to do it here?
Well, it comes down to the fact that Absterge was able to drink so much during this match really gave them a nice mana lead. And towards the end of that one, Whoopi actually had to go and drink. So Whoopi goes for the drink. And usually we would have Peekaboo kind of making sure that he doesn't get that drink. But this time around, instead, they turned the pressure onto Rosita Jones. They kidney shot him with no trinket and no Icebound Fortitude. No way to get out of that kidney shot. Then they followed that up with a silence as well. And then they forced Whoopi to come out of drinking. And he actually doesn't even get any mana. Then we see the follow-up CC from WizK as well, opening up this big opportunity for them. And then next time they get that CC chain, they can just completely eradicate Rosita Jones from this game. So right here, Whoopi is completely out of mana. He has trinketed that fear. Rosita Jones, of course, was in big trouble from that previous setup that happened. And then here we can see kidney shot onto Whoopi. The Maledicts are flying in as well. You can see the WizK is doing a ton and tons of damage. And the split pressure that the move has is so nice. And at this point in the game, the Shaman should be and the Druid should not be But because Absterge got 2 drinks off, it just puts Whoopi too far behind here to do anything really to save Rosita Jones there.
How do we like this composition, though, coming out from For Fun? This is obviously Cheerios' first time on the squad. Is the answer more Cheerios?
Well, I think the comp that For Fun ran is really good, but the execution that they had was not the greatest. I think Cheerios should chase Absterge way more and just leave Rosita Jones to kind of fend for himself and just be annoying towards WizK. And similarly to what we saw Raikou do yesterday when Method Black played this composition, Raikou would just pop his Metamorphosis on the enemy healer, chase him down, imprison him into the Mana Rift and stun him into the Mana Rift and make sure he never gets that drink and kind of combo that with his healer Chaz, or in this case Whoopi, to make sure that the enemy healer just doesn't get to drink.
So basically reevaluate what they're doing with Cheerios. Now, in your mind, do you think that another scoop of Cheerios is what the doctor wanted?
Laughing at your own joke.
I'm not laughing at anything.
No shame at all.
I laughed at it. It was
so,
a good joke.
For fun, I feel like at this point, if the move lock in the RPS once again, that's an opportunity for them to bring in Omnivore. So actually bring in the Warrior, which is going to be super effective against the Shadow Priest, I believe. You can play Shadow Priest, or so you can play Warrior Demon Hunter, which would be good. You could also play Warrior Death Knight. I think both of those compositions are going to have a lot more pressure, especially with the Mortal Wounds effect that the Warrior does bring. Really good, consistent damage. But maybe they end up just going with the same thing, but I definitely feel like they have some options. Whoopi could go back to Mistweaver Monk, which is effective against the Shadow Priest as well. With the counteract magic talent, it's really strong into all those damage over time effects that WizK brings, and potentially they could outlast on mana that way.
Omnivore Cheerios, what do you want to see here?
I mean, it's pretty early in the day. I think I'd rather see Cheerios, but I think Warrior Demon Hunter is still a pretty good option as well if they bring in the Mistweaver Monk. Something along these lines. I definitely want to see Omnivore and Warrior. He had a little bit of a depressing experience last week, but there are no mages on the roster of the move. So if I were Omnivore, I wouldn't be as hesitant to lock myself in on that Warrior in particular against the move. I think a Warrior is super effective against the compositions that the move have it at their disposal, and I would like to see him here on Hook Point.
Yeah, that was mostly, I believe it actually was on Hook Point and Blackrock Hold too that we saw Omnivore, but he was playing into a Frost Mage, wasn't able to really get much done.
I actually think that because of the fact that Omnivore lacks a lot of self-healing, unless no, I actually don't want to see him.
Okay.
I mean, DK Warrior and Mistweaver is a really good comp, and I like it because of comfort, but I actually think Omnivore would be just less durable than a Demon Hunter because of the fact that the Demon Hunter has so much leech, and I think the Mana Rift, if they use it better, if they play the same comp, but just they use Cheerios a little bit differently, I think that way they will have a higher chance of winning. I think if they bring in Omnivore, that kind of brings in a target that doesn't have too much self-healing that they actually can take down.
Yeah, all the Warriors on vacation right now. You know, last week they were hanging out with Swifty, snowboarding in Romania. Now I'm pretty sure they're at Bashir. Oh, it looks like vacation's over. Omnivore going to be coming in. Rosita Jones going to be on that Death Knight again. Whoopi, of course, going to be healing. How does this play into them? You start talking about maybe why you don't want to see Omnivore because of the lack of self-healing. How does For Fun manage to win?
Well, For Fun's win condition is pretty clear. They just need to have Whoopi kind of push in, get the incapacitates, maybe a leg sweep onto Absterge, have Omnivore and Rosita Jones sit on WizK as much as possible and take him down eventually. Their win condition is basically pressure WizK as much as possible and win on mana, but I think the move also has a pretty nice win condition. I think early on the counteract magic is for sure going to negate a lot of the Shadow Priest damage, but if the game goes to like 20-30% dampening, I think the move have a really, really clear win condition as well on the Warrior, where they can either take down the Mistweaver and the Warrior, Mistweaver or the Warrior, sorry, kind of similarly to what we saw in the last game when they were switching between the Resto Druid and the Death Knight. They can do the same thing here, but have an even juicier target than the Death Knight in that Warrior. So For Fun needs to win pretty early, I think. They need to tap Absterge's mana bar very early on.
This is big for the move as well, though. Currently in 8th place entering today, and now a chance to maybe move up that ladder just a little bit. A team that we saw do so fantastically well last year. But I will also say in the same breath, first few tournaments weren't really great for the move last year either. Their comps weren't working then, and they kind of stuck to their guns, and all of a sudden you get to a patch where they look really strong. Do you think that that's the case again? Do you think that this is a team that's just going to wait for the meta to be right?
Well, no one can really tell the future. We don't know which compositions, which classes are going to be good in the upcoming months or years. So
sure.
One thing is for sure, though, I think at the move, they do stick to their guns. If they happen to get a patch where RPS is good, they're just going to be an unstoppable team, just like we saw last year. They're just so solid at it. They know all the right strategies, compositions, and it's like they're training in high gravity in these tournaments right now where they are slightly disadvantaged. But I think if they can pull through, it's going to be looking good for them for the rest of the year.
I think the more important thing to talk about is whether or not we think that this is a team that can diversify throughout the entirety of the year. We can talk about that a little bit more after this one because the gates are already open on Hook Point, the move versus For Fun.
Yeah, I think Absterge on the Restoration Shaman is going to struggle with heavy single target healing. So if Omnivore, Whoopi, and Rosita Jones can connect on WizK, and Absterge just has to bomb heals on him over and over and over with these healing waves, I think he will go out of mana relatively quickly, and I think the pressure for Fun will be high. But so far the move getting aggressive early on to Omnivore. We know Zico, he didn't really like the Warrior just because it doesn't have as much self-healing, but I personally think Whoopi will be able to keep him up until at least a little bit later on in the game, and I think until dampening For Fun have a clear advantage.
Yep, definitely will be the case with Whoopi locked down and crowd control during that wave. The Crane Omnivore is exposed, and as Zico pointed out in the pre-match, he does not have any self-healing mechanics, so any points of damage you get on an Arms Warrior are going to stick for the entire fight until your healer can then pick the target up, and they've already fallen heavily behind on defensive cooldowns just to stabilize Omnivore throughout that initial assault, and this is what we credit the move for doing, is if they see any signs of weakness, they immediately pounce on that weak link and capitalize on it, closing matches out rapidly as a result.
Yep, WizKid doing a lot of burst. Double Maledict going out on Omnivore. Whoopi's burned through every single one of his defensive cooldowns. He has no life cocoon. He already used his revival, gets Shadow Step kicked by Peekaboo. Way of the Crane shortly available. Whoopi's going to have to get high value out of this Way of the Crane if he wants to keep his team alive. Omnivore runs away, gets out of line of sight. Now a kidney shot committed on Whoopi, forced to trinket out. And the move is just owning For Fun, forcing them so defensive in this matchup, burning through every single one of their defensive cooldowns. Silence now on Whoopi. Omnivore still low. Whoopi thankfully has the life cocoon right before the fear. It's nicely done. Omnivore should survive because of that.
But even still, now fully hexed by Absterge. You can tell that the move know how to set up for kills, and going after a target without that self-sustainability is a huge liability for Fun. Peekaboo has landed Shadow Step kick after Shadow Step kick. Whoopi finally able to connect with that Way of the Crane. 3 members of For Fun have finally pressured the move back and banked a dispersion from WizK's defensive arsenal. Now switching their attention to Peekaboo, trying to catch him off guard. No evasion for 13 seconds. Absterge starting to stabilize the team. Finally some counter pressure for Fun, but they are going to be exposed to this next vendetta shortly. WizK tries to set up some crowd control, silencing Whoopi. Absterge moves across the map to try and get a hex. They are making sure that they keep Whoopi on the move so he cannot stand still and cast Soothing Mist. Omnivore sees that threat and landed a double intimidating shout, buying time for him to get restabilized by Whoopi. But there's already a significant mana lead in favor of the move, a significant momentum lead as well. For Fun need a lot of damage, and they need it now.
Yeah, they absolutely do. There's no question about it. The move, though, under a little bit of pressure, Peekaboo is getting a little low, and you can see Whoopi, he's actually running Relentless, so he is going to be susceptible to those blind saps coming in from Peekaboo. Vendetta gets pulled out by Peekaboo. Let's see if there's any follow-up crowd control onto Whoopi. Omnivore getting low, Anti-Magic Zone forced to be traded out, as well as that Life Cocoon. For Fun once again burning through a lot of their defensives, but they need to buy Omnivore some time. He's got 28 seconds left on that Die by the Sword. That's the only cooldown he really has to keep himself alive. Full blind on Whoopi. Can they take Omnivore down? Peekaboo seems to be the one that's forced to play defensive. A nice War Banner coming in from Omnivore, denying that blind sap. All these crowd controls on Whoopi will be less in duration, as the War Banner does prevent a lot of that crowd control. Way of the Crane gets activated by Whoopi, trying to keep Omnivore alive, still getting denied on some of that healing. WizK running away, Peekaboo trying to kite. Whoopi finally getting on target, able to top off his team. For Fun do stabilize, and the move could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yep, For Fun looking to make a push off the back of all the crowd control that was dished out towards them. This is where they would like to force a dispersion. Earthen Wall Totem is likely all they're going to get, though. Shackle on that Abomination. WizK's defense still looking solid here in game number 2. Peekaboo looks to set up a swap, trying to catch Whoopi off guard, mix it up again, that mid-game adaptation on the move's part, but now WizK has been left alone for a bit, and he's feeling a bit of the brunt from the team of For Fun. Trades out Dispersion while Absterge is crowd controlled. Peekaboo's solo mission has managed to at least pull Life Cocoon, but it's cost his team defensive cooldowns as well. Risks must be taken to find victory for the move in the tournament today as they battle against the meta.
Yeah, Whoopi getting low. Peekaboo all over him at this point, trying to force out Revival or potentially that Way of the Crane if he can, but Whoopi doesn't have much mana left. Neither does Absterge, and I think it's unlikely at this point we're going to see any of these healers drink. That was a really nice Ring of Peace there by Whoopi. You can actually use it to pin your healer against the wall, then you can actually get off any casted spells. So high-level Mistweaver play there from Whoopi. Absterge manages to top off his team. Vampiric Embrace gets thrown out by WizK as well. Wants to remain aggressive, help out his healer with a little bit of extra healing. Omnivore on 50% health. Smoke Bomb gets dropped out by Peekaboo. He still has a Vendetta. If they can pull out Way of the Crane or the Life Cocoon pre-Vendetta, that's a clear win condition for the move moving forward.
I mean, at this point, they're in dire straits. They interrupt Absterge. This Hex, though, if Whoopi gets hexed, it's going to be devastating. He's trying to line of sight, squeak in, get a Rising Sun kick, squeak around the corner of the wall. Good defensive rotations by Whoopi. A effective use of hook point to avoid crowd control and at least get some damage on that way of the Crane, desperately trying to force the last line of defense, that void shift of WizK, but Earthen Wall Totem seems to be enough. Shackle Undead needs to be casted. It gets interrupted. Now that Abomination will be allowed to go to town. How much punishment can WizK take here in game number 2? Dispersion available in 1 more second. Peekaboo buys time to get that. Secures crowd control into 2 members. Omnivore in a 3-on-2. Rosita saves him with anti-magic zone. He starts to stabilize. Now WizK on the back foot, but Whoopi still silenced. Stormbolt by Omnivore. Whoopi's got that Aura Mastery rolling, trying to connect a couple of big heals to get Omnivore back into the fight. It's still anyone's fight at this point.
Yeah, Omnivore still low. If WizK can purge off a lot of these heals coming in from Whoopi, Omnivore could still be in a lot of trouble. Way of the Crane almost up for Whoopi. If he can use that, he might be able to top off his team. Napster is almost completely out of mana. WizK, the only thing he has left is that Void Shift, getting lower and lower. Omnivore, Rosita Jones looking to close out the game. WizK gets interrupted. Void Shift forced out, but they're just going to be all over WizK. And still a lot of pressure. Absurge low on mana, but I think it's unlikely Omnivore actually swaps to him. He's just throwing him into an intimidating shout. WizK on 50% health. For Fun rotting down. Omnivore very vulnerable. Whoopi doesn't have the mana to activate Way of the Crane just yet. He's trying to hold on a little bit longer, keeping Omnivore alive. The move, though, is the one that's in trouble.
I mean, they don't have anything to work with here. They've got no mana, really nothing left defensively. Vampiric Embrace and Dampening is not that effective of healing your team. Whoopi's trying to sit down for drinks. That's distracting Peekaboo. He has to keep his attention there, which means he can't support WizK. He's just got a Warrior and a Death Knight chopping him up in midfield. Absurge is never going to get a drink on hook point. For Fun have set themselves up for victory here on game number 2. Can the move pull off a miracle? They've got an opportunity in about 30 seconds, but I don't think they've got 30 seconds left in this match to stay in it. Peekaboo tries to carry it. Can he do it by himself single-handedly? Take down
No
Whoopi.
way!
They do manage to back up the crowd control. Peekaboo gets peeled away by Omnivore. Whoopi portals in a line of sight, but Absurge is there to deny the heal for a couple of extra seconds. Peekaboo needs to make his way back down towards Whoopi, but he just can't. Now Maledicts are flying in towards WizK. Dispersion has to be traded, but all the healing from it is being absorbed. The Abomination is unshackled and going at WizK. He's looking to deny it, manages to get it. Mind controls defensively to try and stay in the fight to buy time for that Spirit Link Totem. It's 5 seconds away. They just need to stall 3 more seconds. Absurge now has that Spirit Link Totem. Whoopi against the wall, quite literally here in game number 2, but WizK gets chopped up first. Where's the Spirit Link? He doesn't have the mana to put it down. Absurge is just out of mana. He barely gets enough to put it down to save the team. Peekaboo now has Vendetta rolling. He needs to kill Whoopi here and now. If Whoopi doesn't die in these next couple of seconds, WizK is going to be just torn to shreds. Can Peekaboo take down Whoopi? He's in line of sight of WizK. A critical mistake that could maybe cost his life. He's managed to roll back to the pillar. Now WizK on the back foot in void form, trying to get a kill as he desperately can't do it. WizK falls. Whoopi stays alive, and For Fun tie the series.
This isn't completely over yet. Whoopi has no mana left. If Peekaboo can land a kidney shot, they might be able to actually close out that game. What a close matchup between these two teams.
And ultimately, Omnivore is going to be the thing that does help them do it. This composition does look good. But Zico, let's talk about this game in particular, and then we'll try to figure out what we may see next.
Whoa, that was a nail-biter. The move, I mean, it comes down to so many small things. The move, they have a great opener. They get the silence onto Whoopi after that long crowd control chain. Whoopi activates his Way of the Crane. They blind him up on it. They force out a lot of cooldowns here on Omnivore. And the Warrior really takes a lot of damage, but he can also definitely dish it out to that Shadow Priest. And I just wanted to see a couple of more swaps like this one towards Whoopi. So close towards the end of that one, honestly. Omnivore, he didn't really have much to work with either. Absurge, of course, super barely gets that Spirit Link there. And honestly, it comes down to these couple of last seconds as well, where Whoopi, he gets a couple of heals out. That Soothing Mist, such a mana cost efficient heal, and combined with that immunity to interrupts, manages to stabilize him just enough to survive that one. Look at his mana, look at everybody's mana, so close as well. WizK almost getting his disperse back there. The Warrior is nice in the sense that it applies the pressure, but it's also a huge liability as well. I think the biggest X factor in this match was the Mistweaver. I think if we see this composition, but with a Mistweaver and a Demon Hunter coming out of For Fun, I think that's the winning recipe for them.
So maybe we do see Cheerios in the next one. Either way, we got 2 teams that are definitely doing it their own way. They're all tied up. We're going to find out who takes it, the move or For Fun, when we return.
Whoopi is, of course, a phenomenal Mistweaver. This is his main. And Mistweaver against Shadow Priest teams with the counteract magic just allows them to basically heal with very, very low mana cost on that Soothing Mist for huge amounts for just an extended period of time. You're gonna have the Demon Hunter is gonna apply even more pressure on Absterge if Cheerios does a little bit better job kind of chasing down Absterge and mana rifting him, and you're gonna have that added self-sustaining with that soul rending as well.
Yeah, and ultimately too, being the monk on Tiger's Peak, you're gonna have home field advantage, which we know can be very important. All tied up 1-1 for Fun versus the Move. That changes right now.
Right, the move get denied on a sap early on. Instead, are going to be targeting the healer Whoopi with Cheerios hexed up. Definitely good cross-crowd control. WizKay, though, unable to support Peekaboo. Cheerios denies any further damage from this initial attack, and Whoopi should start to stabilize. They grip Peekaboo off Whoopi, stun locking him. Absterge immediately responds, trading both Healing Tide and Earthen Wall to stabilize the team through that attack, effectively negating that swap entirely. Blind does pull the trinket from Whoopi, which is now an opening for Peekaboo to go after him. I'm curious to see when Peekaboo decides to pull the trigger on that. Maledict's flying in. That's Way of the Crane. They need to respect Whoopi's damage output potential here and just avoid it, wait for it to finish, maybe look for a Psychic Scream, some crowd control along those lines. Double leg sweep. Whoopi still leading the charge for the team, now setting up a swap to Peekaboo. Cheerios looking for those mana rifts. He definitely needs to be landing those as frequently as possible to build and generate a mana advantage. Peekaboo still with all of those offensive cooldowns, just juicy, watering at the mouth, ready to go and take down Whoopi. He's looking for any opportunity if Whoopi moves into line of sight. Shadow Step Kidney Shot is likely to be the follow-up. Peekaboo sees Whoopi out of combat, looks to try and sap him. Not able to get it, unfortunately. Now goes for a swap instead.
Yeah, now full Kidney Shot on Whoopi. Oh, but Rosita Jones there to back him up, grips away Peekaboo, puts him into the Asphyxiate stun, and Whoopi's going to be completely fine. And looking at Whoopi's talents, he's actually not running the counteract magic, and I think a large part of that is because Rosita Jones and Cheerios should, in theory, be able to keep themselves up through a lot of these Shadow Priest dots, and he realizes he might be the main target of choice, but Rosita Jones under a surprising amount of pressure. Smoke Bomb does get dropped out. Peekaboo with the Vendetta tried to get a lot of cooldowns from Rosita Jones, managed to pull out the 3-minute Icebound Fortitude from Rosita Jones. Whoopi, his Life Cocoon as well. WizKay under fire, taking a lot of pressure. Absterge trying to keep him up. Whoopi with a great Ring of Peace into a leg sweep on Absterge, denying a lot of those heals. WizKay could still be in a little bit of trouble, throwing out Shadow Mends on himself, trying to stabilize. Doesn't want to have to use the Disperse or the Void Shift just yet. And ultimately, he will be able to hold on to those. That was a really nice offensive play by Whoopi.
The one reason you can't count For Fun out is because of that player, Rosita Jones. He was a Titan Slayer in previous BlizzCons, taking out the former Method Triforce roster, thought to be undefeatable, but he was able to dismantle their roster. Now going head-to-head with the Titaness, the Move, looking to eliminate them now from the competition in the second series of the day. A lot on the line here for the Move. They need a stellar performance to get enough points to qualify to the spring finals. The meta has not been in their favor. Everything is stacked against them, and they still play against the odds.
Yeah, and one of the things that's funny is the fourth member on the Move is actually Jelly Beans, and he was one of Rosita Jones's partner who did have such a deep run at that BlizzCon together. So that is interesting between these two teams. Full hex now onto Whoopi. Rosita Jones looking like he's going to be fine. Pressure here from the Move, still onto Whoopi. Full Kidney Shot. He wasn't able to top himself off completely, but he did preemptively drop the Ring of Peace. Such high-level plays from Whoopi, and there's just such a massive difference between Whoopi, the Mistweaver Monk, and Whoopi, the Restoration Druid. He's just constantly making these little outplays in the game, and it's just fantastic to see.
Yeah, most certainly is. I definitely do enjoy watching Whoopi on that Mistweaver Monk when I can get a chance. Rosita getting bursted down, makes a trade, but right before Vendetta, Peekaboo once again with an opportunity to take down Rosita. See how he decides to execute on it. Silence is shortly available for WizKay. So Peekaboo and WizKay have a lot of crowd control, and Peekaboo has a lot of damage because Vendetta is now available. They've got an opportunity to find a kill. They're going to go after Whoopi with it. Kidney Shot Vendetta, likely silence if WizKay can get in position. He does manage to do so, but with reverse magic, that silence is removed by Cheerios. Good backup and teamwork on his part. Now Whoopi charges in to get a kill with Way of the Crane activated. Peekaboo respects that amount of damage, decides to use his Gladiator's Medallion to break lock out of the stun and evasion all the incoming attacks. Fully respecting the damage, but now opening himself up later on.
Yeah, Whoopi's still under fire. Double Gladiator Maledict's going to be flying in from the Move. Darkness forced to be dropped out by Cheerios to keep Whoopi alive. Just has a few seconds left on that life cocoon, but he's still in some trouble. He gets silenced on his Aura Mastery. That Zen Focus T, not getting any value from it. Peekaboo forced to be put into the stun by Rosita Jones. Not ideal in terms of offensive pressure, but they needed to keep Whoopi alive in that situation. Now Peekaboo still actually under a surprising amount of pressure. You can see WizK moving in, trying to find some crowd control, setting up Peekaboo with a life grip into a kidney shot. Good teamwork from the move. Whoopi should be able to survive with the revival, but he's still in a lot of trouble.
Whoopi now transcendencing out of line of sight, but Absterge is on his heels. Peekaboo in hot pursuit to take down Whoopi in game number 3 here. Whoopi risks the dispel on those damage over time effects, soaking up a little bit of extra crowd control. Maybe an opening for Peekaboo. Peekaboo gets gripped away. Shadow steps to the death grip. Immediately back on target, but Whoopi immediately used the life cocoon to absorb all of the hits, but he's still crowd control. They crush right through that shield. He's managed to make a getaway though with that leg sweep and survive behind the pillar. Mana slowly in favor of Absterge. Cooldown certainly in favor now as well. The mover looking strong in game 3, but you can't count For Fun out.
Yeah, Whoopi, they need to be looking for drinks in this matchup, but Peekaboo just sitting on top of him is making it so difficult. There's really no vanish threat, so if he ever can escape, he doesn't have to worry about really getting sapped. But Peekaboo getting pressured away by Cheerios. Rosita Jones coming back as well, trying to pressure him away. There's no evasion, trinket, or anything for Peekaboo. Absterge is going to have to use a lot of mana to keep him alive. And I think this is Danger Town for Peekaboo. Void Shift traded out by WizK. I don't think Peekaboo can afford to play this aggressive in the matchup at this point in the game. With nothing left, he has to wait till evasion is back up, but decides to pull the trigger on the Vendetta with a full kidney shot on the way of the crane of Whoopi. And he has no trinket. Whoopi rolls away with the Fortifying Brew. He'll survive, but the move is the one that's under pressure.
Yeah, Absterge is trying to deny that kill opportunity for Fun with his Ascendance, now stabilizing the team. WizK moves in, pumps out a triple Psychic Scream. No real advantage, though, played off of that. Whoopi Shadow is able to Transcendence away. Rosita's Death Grip is stalling out Peekaboo, but he's got that maneuverability honor talent, so his sprint cannot be suppressed as he wanted to chase down Whoopi. Whoopi denies the reconnect with that Ring of Peace. It's all about protect Whoopi. Don't let Peekaboo get anywhere near him for these couple of seconds. Now instead going after Rosita. Peekaboo is still quite far behind. Dampening is starting to ramp up. They can't afford to throw away this match and go to game 5. Peekaboo makes the trade on that evasion. Will it be enough? They silence up Whoopi. They look to kill Rosita. He has cooldowns to trade. Icebound Fortitude overlapped with the anti-magic zone, and even still Rosita barely hangs on. Preemptive blind play there, preemptive life cocoon on the blind, but now caught into a Quaking Palm. Whoopi still out of the fight for a couple more seconds. Rosita is still low on health if they can keep up the momentum. Still crowd controlling up Whoopi with every last second, every last millisecond of crowd control to take down Rosita, but ultimately the chain is broken. No, mind control at low health. WizK tries to stall it out just long enough for his silence now to be available. Rosita gets Mind Flay snared out of line of sight. Really top level play here by the move, but now Whoopi looks to counter engage. He activates away the crane, but walks right into WizK's trap. Double Psychic Scream. Rosita in trouble. Silence to deny the anti-magic shield. Hex secured. Darkness is going to be enough. Darkness is barely enough to keep Rosita alive. The mover on fire.
Oh my goodness gracious, WizK had such an insane play there. He life gripped Peekaboo over. Whoopi chases him into a triple fear, setting up his team beautifully with these mind controls, with the life grips. The move is on fire in this matchup. Can they overcome all odds in this series? Full kidney shot now onto Rosita Jones. He's still low, not many cooldowns to work with. Whoopi saves his life with the life cocoon. Now Peekaboo is the one that's on the run, but he has Vendetta available. The move have the tools they need to close out the game. There's not a single defensive cooldown left For Fun, and this is looking like Danger Town.
Yeah, mana still equivalent here at 20% damage. This is when the match was a close game last time. Let's see how much longer can Absterge keep his team afloat. He's got some defensive options, but he's stun locked for one more second. Peekaboo on the run. He's in desperation to stay alive, trying to kite the entire team. WizK gets in the Spirit Link Totem with one final second left. They pull the trigger on the Vendetta. It's do or die. Can they take Rosita Jones down? 2 more seconds left on that anti-magic shield. Now just available to start to stabilize, but a Hex is secured. Pressure on both fronts. Mind control, perfect timing on Whoopi. Rosita tries to pull back and get in line of sight to stabilize. Nice place. Peekaboo stuns Whoopi on that free casted heal, and they follow it up with Void Form damage. Another Hex secured by Absterge. He's trying to squeak in a little bit of extra damage, and it's just enough to put the move back in the fight and move to match point.
We are going to see the move able to take another one down. And Zico, once again, we do just need to talk about the fact that we are seeing these teams play very close, but also playing in a way that we're not seeing other teams play.
Yeah, Both teams are definitely playing very, very aggressive. I really gotta give it to Whiskey. He played phenomenally in this game. This is why you don't leave Whiskey free casting going after Peekaboo. Whiskey able to time and time again set up his team. You can see right there with a fear into the Hex from Absterge to close that one out. And even prior to this, you guys already mentioned it during the cast when he got that life grip triple fear combo, when he got the mind control on low HP on the Rosita Jones. Time and time again, Whiskey came in clutch for his team. This guy has been playing out of his mind, and this is why they were such a strong team last year. We were counting them out time and time again, but time and time again, they just beat these straight up hard counter comps. Yeah, and it's just fantastic to see.
That was always the thing with them, right? They would just come out and they would just do more damage than the other teams so many times. And you did want to see the Demon Hunter come in here. Did you like the Demon Hunter? Is that still the composition that you want to see this team run?
Well, I like the composition that they ran. I don't like the targeting. I don't like the fact that there just didn't seem to be enough mana rift going out onto Absterge. Basically, when you are for fun, the less you mana rift Absterge, the more you're gonna have to kind of survive these big long CC chain attacks that the move are launching at you. And you need to pressure Absterge. I didn't see a single metamorphosis being used onto Absterge. I didn't see any actual pressure being thrown at him. The way that For Fun should approach the matchup is you're not supposed to go on Peekaboo. You're supposed to just snare him with the Chains of Ice. You're supposed to have your DK sit on to Whiskey pretty much the entirety of the game, because he's really the X factor who gets to set up all of these CC chains. And then you just have your Demon Hunter chase Absterge, mana rift him, and when your Demon Hunter has to go and pressure somewhere else, presumably on Whiskey, you have your Mistweaver chase after that Shaman, make sure he doesn't drink. And if you play the matchup like that, the way the Method Black plays it, then you're gonna be able to out of mana Absterge way sooner. Another criticism I have for Whoopi is he uses his Way of the Crane very aggressively sometimes, pushing into force cooldowns. When we saw the Mistweavers over in Europe, they played it a little bit more in the sense that they didn't want to use their Way of the Crane because it's so expensive. Instead, they were sitting back, relying on the counteract magic, which he wasn't even playing this game, to kind of do most of the healing. And then in deep dampening, we saw that big 1 or 2 Way of the Crane pushes. I want to see a little bit more of a conservative style from them, because they are playing the Outlast comp. They are supposed to be outlasting this Shadow Priest Rogue.
Sid, do you agree with that? That's something that we've been talking about, and I think we've been getting more and more data points on throughout these tournaments, the usage of the Way of the Crane. At first, we saw people just straight up kind of avoiding using it altogether. Now, what Zico said in Europe, we see a lot of those, maybe 1, maybe 2 really big pushes going in, getting that big damage, getting their team topped. What do you want to see in this matchup with Way of the Crane?
I think historically Europe has always played more calculated than North America. North America is a little bit more zug-zug, just run down the other team. So maybe Whoopi gets a little bit excited on the team, wants to set up for a kill, but that can often actually net you a win if you take a risk like it. So I don't really completely blame the decision-making there, although maybe it could be timed better. A couple moments where he was Chi torpedoing into a Psychic Scream. Maybe it's beneficial for him to not actually attack the Shadow Priest with the Way of the Crane, go after a different target if he's going to use it aggressively so he can avoid that crowd control. They just didn't do a good job of disruption, and that could also be attributed to them just playing overly aggressive. As Zico pointed out, they could just play more defensive and then avoid crowd control and win in a late game kill, which is what basically every team has been utilizing strategically.
I think Sid brings up a really good point here, and to bounce off that, how do you feel about Zug Zug?
How do I feel about Zug Zug? Well, I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that question. But talking about something else that's a little bit more relevant to the game. I know I'm no fun, I'm sorry. But something that's a little bit more relevant to the game is that counteract magic talent choice. Normally you do see it played against the Shadow Priest, but Shadow Priests were one of the only hybrids that didn't get a mana regen nerf. So they actually still have a lot of those utility spells that they can use a lot more often, like the Dispel Magic. So I think if Whiskey and Absterge are doing a really good job during those moments of pressure and they can dispel the Renewing Mist, maybe Whoopi doesn't feel like he's getting max value from it, opting to go for the Zen Focus T, but we saw him multiple times in that game getting silenced on it and then really not getting a lot of value out of that. So I'm not exactly sure what talent she should run. He probably knows better than I do. But yeah, for sure, I think we saw a little bit too much aggression from Whoopi when it comes to pushing in with the Way of the Crane on the Psychic Screams, because that really set the move up for a lot of pressure in those matchups.
A lot of really good points there. Definitely not the answer that I was expecting,
No.
but we're going to see the move here, able to play their bread and butter composition yet again. They are on match point. How is Ashmane's Fall going to factor in this one, Zico?
I was going to say, I think Ashmane's Falls means Fire Mage. I think we're going to see Fire Mage, Warrior, and Mistweaver on Ashmane's Fall because it's a terrible map if you're a Cleave.
Yeah, so also Fire Mage, when you think about For Fun, when this first really became a team, the first time we saw them, it was like they had cracked the code to the game. It was those big meteors coming down, these huge setups. Obviously, we've seen Fire Mage change quite a bit since then, but that still does seem to be kind of the focus of what they do bring, and really bringing Rosita Jones in on the Mage quite a bit, even though we've seen him play some of these other classes in tournaments when he was up on that BlizzCon stage maybe 2 years ago. Why don't we see those comps at all when they are playing against the move?
Well, I think the Fire Mage is very susceptible to actually dying way before dampening even becomes a factor, because you have the Temporal Shield to kind of rely on with your self-healing, but a big change right now for Fire Mage is the Maledict Trinket. You can actually time your Maledict Trinket so that when the mage is, let's say he's stunned, he's on 20% or so HP, he's taking a lot of damage, you know that you're most likely going to be proccing that Cauterize. You can time your Maledict Trinket to absorb the entire Cauterize, essentially negating that defense completely. The other thing, of course, as well, is that the move have a double Dispel threat. So if you rely on the Temporal Shield before you get stunned up, there's not much that's going to prevent Whiskey from just using his Dispel to remove it. And we already mentioned with the Warrior, you don't have too much self-healing, you don't have too many snares as well, so Peekaboo's going to have a pretty good time going up against that Fire Mage. If you manage to get one long CC chain on the Whoopee, you can almost certainly get that Ice Block out of the way, and matches in this meta, you kind of need them to go to dampening to actually close them out as a mage, and now you're going to have to kind of rely on being even more aggressive than the move. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can pull that off.
Good thing they have a Warrior that has instant 50% dampening with Sharpened Blade. That could be an X factor for Fun. I actually think that this composition it's their most practiced, in my opinion, and I think the best because of that.
I feel like, too, one of the things that you keep coming back to is how much you like Warrior and MS.
I like Warriors.
Yeah, you constantly do come back to
from
it.
NA, it's Zug Zug, okay?
Yeah, there you go.
I like Warriors.
Yeah, but we've heard you kind of ask for it quite a bit. Now we do have Ashmane's Fall, which Zico said this kind of signaled this composition was going to come. And now we have a lot of things to work with for Fun. And you go back to something that we've talked about even earlier today in previous matches. You're going to be comfortable. You're going to be on the comp that you have the most practice on. Super Tees, do you think they're going to be able to win here and extend this to a Game 5?
I think we're going to a Game 5. But in Game 5, I think the Move are going to take it. The Move are on point with their plays. I think For Fun is going to catch them off guard, though, in this game.
Okay. Then how do you feel about this comp?
I think it's a good composition. With the way Rosita Jones plays Fire Mage, it's unlike... His build is really good. I don't know why more mages don't play it. A lot of them opt to go for Greater Pyroblast, but if you play the Fire Starter PvP talent, the Firestarter regular talent, as well as the Flame Cannon, that basically allows you to spam out Fireball. It does really good consistent damage and slowly resets your combustion. It just allows you to do more off-sync goes. Normally combustion, 1.5 minute cooldown. It's much easier to rotate through your defensive cooldowns, but if you get off consistent Fireballs in the match, you're going to have a combustion that's maybe 50 seconds, and then all of a sudden defensive cooldowns aren't synced up, and you can get those big meteors, big Pyroblast plays, and that's going to allow them to get really good consistent pressure, especially with Omnivore and Whoopee with the way he really likes to push in and get aggressive with that Way of the Crane. So I think for Fun, they'll have solid offense in this matchup, but I think they're going to be really susceptible to the move's damage, and I think if the move is on point with their crowd control, I think Rosita Jones is really going to struggle getting those Fireballs off and that consistent damage off. I think he's just going to be having to play too defensive.
Well, I agree with that. And actually, Rosita Jones, he doesn't usually play the Fireball, the Firestarter normal talent. He likes to go for the Scorch talent. When you Scorch someone under 30%, it's a guaranteed crit. And I like the Firestarter way more in this build. It just synergizes with the build overall very well. And I like the Scorch one if you play the Greater Pyroblast, because that way you get people under the 30% mark very often, and then you can kind of combo that with the Scorch. So hopefully he's done that adaptation, but overall the build that he plays is super, super effective. The way that they play this composition as well, I think they're the best at it, and it's very exciting to see how he plays it, because pretty much every other Fire Mage is playing the Greater Pyroblast build, and I don't agree with that. I think in tournament play especially, teams are so good at shutting those down, and if the game drags on, then you actually just end up winning because the Fire Mage consistent pressure is so low. Whereas with this build that Rosita Jones usually plays, it's just way better to surprise people. You just see Whoopi push in with the Incapacitate, Omnivore drops the Stormbolt, Rosita Jones all of a sudden is just igniting people with that combustion burst. It's very fun to watch as well, and they're super good.
It's also, the thing is when you look at this setup on the side of For Fun, it fits every single individual player's play style perfectly. It is such a good composition for them, and that's why we do love to see it. But is it going to be enough for Fun to extend this to a Game 5, or is the move going to close out this series on Ashmane's Fall? Peekaboo!
Yeah, tons of damage here from For Fun, and that is the surprise factor that they bring with this unique composition that they basically trademarked towards the end of AWC's series last year. This Fire Mage, this Mistweaver, this Arms Warrior, it's just totally peculiar to think that it actually works, but they've managed to synergize it quite effectively with their strategies. Whoopi now leading the charge as they switch targets to WizK. He fades the incoming Sharpened Blade. Well done on WizK's part, immuning that incoming damage and healing reduction. WizK's defense has just been solid this entire series. The move, battle against the meta, they battle against basically everything stacked against them, and they still manage to pull off victories. Potentially this is their tournament for the comeback. They need to win one more game to stay alive in the lower bracket.
Yeah, Omnivore still under a lot of pressure. Whoopi moving in, looking for some crowd control. They want to get aggressive on Peekaboo once again. WizK in the polymorph. Good cross crowd control by For Fun, but that setup gets denied. Now a kidney shot on Rosita Jones. He could be in some trouble. Whoopi easily healing through it though, not at any CC. Doesn't really have to deal with too much just yet. A lot of the crowd control that the move has available, it has cooldowns on it. WizK's Psychic Scream as well as his Fear, so the move has to do these kind of hit and run strategies where every once in a while they get these massive crowd control chains. But outside of that, Whoopi should be able to heal through that damage. Once the CC is initiated though, definitely For Fun could be in some trouble.
Ooh, big meteor hit here for Fun. Void Shift is going to be switching the health from Peekaboo to WizK in the nick of time to save the move. Once again, WizK's defense looking impenetrable. Whoopi now getting swapped to by Peekaboo as they try to set up for a kill after him. He's going to deny the kill. With Life Cocoon on Omnivore, both targets start to stabilize. Omnivore, Rosita Jones are ready to roll. Let's see if Peekaboo can manage to escape to safety. Ring of Peace bouncing him back into the team. Rosita out of line of sight to secure crowd control. Instant Mass Dispel. Perfect timing, but they get the follow-up. Do they have any more crowd control? Good Stormbolt. Nice combo. Peekaboo dipping dangerously low. Spiritling Totem has now been forced out, and For Fun are out for vengeance here in Game 4.
Yeah, Peekaboo's been in so much trouble during this game. He still has a lot of defensives, though. He has his Trinket, Evasion, Cloak of Shadows. The move opting to use the other defense much earlier on in this matchup. Potentially, it could rotate back up. That might be their strategy. Whoopi's mana not doing great, already on 40%, but Absurge also not doing too well. Peekaboo looking for pressure on Rosita Jones as he is in a Hex. Omnivore also taking a little bit of damage. Whoopi rolling away, uses his Transcendence, and actually sitting down for a drink. The move is trying to find some pressure here, but Whoopi basically completely resetting his mana. This is such a nightmare for the move. Basically hopeless in this situation. Pressured. Whoopi full mana now. Peekaboo under in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, but he still has his personal defensive cooldowns to make some trades, so the move can definitely stay in this game and just close it out here and now. For Fun need to be laser focused for the rest of the fight. They need to make sure that they remove WizK from every engagement so he does not get these Mass Dispels. We see a polymorph on Absturge. Where's the Mass Dispel? It's being channeled, gets counterspelled. Good cross crowd control by For Fun. This is the type of execution that I want to see from them a little bit more consistently. That nets them Peekaboo's personal defensive cooldowns. That was the main objective on that push. Now they need to focus on surviving because the move are striking back. They're just fully going to respect the damage from the move, trade an Ice Block during that blind sap crowd control, but even still, Omnivore now being pressured. Whoopi has to heal 2 targets that are low on health. Looks like he gets silenced. They keep up the damage. Rosita taking the brunt of this exchange. Maledict absorbs a bit of healing. Dispelled off. Another Maledict flies in and they go for the smoke bomb kill, trying to crush Rosita Jones through that Life Cocoon. Ring of Peace might deny Peekaboo's reconnect. Rosita blinks back out of line of sight, stays alive. Omnivore still exposed and rotting down. The move need to race for a kill. Peekaboo doesn't have much to stay alive. If they can't kill Omnivore here and now, Peekaboo will be in trouble. They kill off the War Banner just in time, but Omnivore secures a double intimidating shout. He's able to stay in it, although they got his Gladiator safeguard. Omnivore is completely exposed. Cauterize is only available for Rosita Jones. Any crowd control on Whoopi, and the move are going to close.
Yeah, and Cauterize isn't that great of a defensive, especially with the Gladiator. Gladiator's Maledicт trinket in the game. If the move can press that on Rosita Jones before Cauterize procs, that entire Cauterize heal can get absorbed. So that's why Rosita Jones earlier on, he just traded out his Ice Block, didn't want to wait till Cauterize proc. He had the Maledict on him. He could have just gone down now. Big setup on a Peekaboo. He trinkets out, uses Feint.
Ooh.
That should keep him alive. But now Peekaboo very vulnerable. No evasion, no Cloak of Shadows, no trinket. The move looking to get aggressive on Omnivore. Silence now secured on Whoopi. Omnivore with no defensives has to get the Life Cocoon from Whoopi, but Whoopi's almost completely out of mana. We've just entered Dampening. Whoopi completely reset his mana earlier on in the game, but these consistent way of the Cranes have definitely cost him, Sid.
Absterge just needs 10 more seconds to get that Trinket Spirit Link Totem, a really powerful defensive cooldown combo for a Restoration Shaman, more than likely to save the day, but he's 3 seconds away, 2 seconds away, 1 second away. Once again, with 1 second left, Absterge connects that Spirit Link, saves the team. Whoopi tries to sneak away. He's getting his mana back. He's keeping his team in the fight. He's now got a lead over Absterge, but he needs to recover. His team is still low on health. Wizkay pushes up. He's got Silence available. They go for a blind. He's looking to try and fish for a sap. Peekaboo out of line of sight, gets the re-stealth, gets the sap, perfect crowd control from the move. Nice execution. Rosita on the run, but he's not able to move that Garrote, just holding him in place. Whoopi's so low. How is he going to be able to keep him going? Cauterize triggers. Rosita on the run. Wizkay moves in to try and finish the job, but it is not enough damage to close it out. Peekaboo's got pressure in 2 points with Omnivore low as well. Die by the Sword is just now available for him to make a trade as both teams battle it out to the bitter end.
Yeah, Rosita Jones with that Fire Blood, that Dark Iron Dwarf racial. He kept himself alive in that moment right before Cauterize, removing that Maledict, and that's why he survived. Now Peekaboo getting low, uses the evasion, trying to just stay alive during that Stormbolt. Now full polymorph or half polymorph onto Absterge. Whoopi sneaking away once again, looking for a drink. Rosita Jones in midfield, trying to deny Absterge with the Frost Nova. Whoopi unfortunately not able to find the mana, and now he's left Omnivore all alone. He has to die by the sword, but this is danger time. There we go, Quaking Palm into fear, onto Whoopi. Omnivore getting lower, die by the sword has to be traded out, but that's all he has available. Spell reflecting some of the Absterge's damage, nicely done. Whoopi with basically no mana left in desperation mode. Silence, the CC isn't over. The move wants to close out this game.
Perfect execution by the move, locking Whoopi out. Mind control at very low health, trying to deny the Life Cocoon, but Whoopi doesn't fall for that trap. Now securing that absorb. Mind control now shifted over to Whoopi instead. He gets polymorphed on it. Rosita doing what he can to pause out the fight a tad bit longer. If they can scrape together a Mana Tea for a Way of the Crane, maybe Whoopi can add enough damage to take Peekaboo down. They need to eliminate Wizkay from the fight. He has Void Shift available to save Peekaboo. If they can crowd control that cooldown out and burst down Peekaboo, they can still stay alive in the lower bracket, but they're running out of time. It's quickly sinking. Rosita Jones caught in the stun lock. Omnivore trying to break up the crowd control with the War Banner, pausing the chain, allowing Whoopi to slowly recover, but really with what mana can he do so? Earth Grab on his Chi Torpedo. Whoopi can't move in. He's locked out, but maybe they don't need it. There's the Void Shift. Wizkay saves the day. Peekaboo keeps marching in to try and close this out, but Rosita now has an Ice Block in his back pocket. Wizkay is still low on health. Absterge doesn't have a lot of mana to recover that. Rosita now gets smoke bombed. Ice Block immediately traded out, respecting that damage, realizing Whoopi doesn't have mana to heal it. He needs to stop damage before it happens. Frost Nova on Peekaboo. Rosita needs to avoid Peekaboo at all costs. Any damage is going to stick probably for the rest of the match. Maledict's now soaking up more healing. Life Cocoon gets traded. Wizkay in trouble as they make a swap. He disperses to deny the kill. Absterge once again 10 seconds away from that Spirit Link Totem. Is he going to get it this time?
Yeah, Whoopi into a full blind, no follow-up. Actually, a full hex secured by Absterge. Nicely done. Rosita Jones could be in some trouble. Temporal Shield does get used. Silenced by Wizkay. Whoopi has to hold on a little bit longer. Rosita Jones doing everything he can to survive. A Meteor setup here on the Peekaboo, but easily shrugged off with that feint. Rosita Jones with no Cauterize, with no Ice Block, with no Fire Blood. It's going to be in a lot of trouble. Whoopi trying desperately to get away for a drink, but he doesn't have the Life Cocoon to rely on. He has to keep Rosita Jones topped off in this kidney shot. Quaking Palm by Wizkay using that Pandaren Racial. Double Fear comes in. Rosita Jones all by himself. Dragon's Breath trying to keep himself alive, but ultimately the move, they will close out this series. Excellently done.
And you want to know what the move really is? The fact that they are the only team to play RPS this year. They're going to be able to close out this series.
Even last year, this is what the move does. They play RPS and they just make it look good even when nobody else can do it. It's really amazing to watch these guys, how they play and the small decisions that they make, and also just how they work as a team. We see these small things that Wizkay and Peekaboo do together, and then Absterge always there to back them up as well. You can see Whiskey using his Quaking Palm and then life gripping Peekaboo over. They're always on the same page, and this kill right here, of course, as well, is a result of just having the pressure on two different members throughout the match, and both teams have been playing phenomenally to even get to this point. Any mistake before this point would surely have meant the death of them. Rosita Jones, of course, using his Fireblood Racial to remove that Maledict earlier when his Cauterize procced, allowed him to get a second Ice Block. Here at the end, we see Whiskey pushing in, Whoopi trying to transcend away from the fear. Whiskey doesn't fall for it, and he uses his Quaking Palm instead, and then follows that up with the fear. Just small split-second decisions from all of these players. It makes it look really, really enjoyable to watch.
I want to talk big picture, though. I want to talk about the move and the rest of this tournament. They were able to take down this series, which is fantastic for them. That'll probably move them maybe to like 6th, 5th place on the standings, something like that. Not quite in the area that you do want to be yet, but as